Hi, hello, Mr. Bharat. From the last 10 days, we are seeing the war between Russia and Ukraine. What is your view on it?
Yeah, see, for the past 10 days, we are hearing the war and then a lot of impact on top of it. And then, see, from the day one, if we observe, so we are talking about the two countries, not exactly on the two countries, it is beyond that. See, when NATO coming into the picture, there are a lot of countries involved in under NATO, and then Soviet Union separated, and then so few people take stand on their Russia, China, and some other countries are supporting Russia, and NATO and US is supporting Ukraine. But holistically, whatever the point we are discussing here is like we are primarily. I felt like we are primarily focusing on Ukraine. The reason being is Ukraine is small compared to Russia, and in terms of a lot of factors are there in terms of army, in terms of power, in terms of economically. So a lot of things are there. So Russia is supporting Ukraine till now, and then Ukraine is trying to join under NATO, which is an is kind of opponent to Russia. So Russia's point is rather than joining into a NATO, we can discuss onto the terms. So what terms we can have. And then Zelensky, Mr. President of Ukraine, he was telling those terms are completely not meeting their stands. So Zelensky's point is they'll get more benefit to the country. But here the countries who was discussing about this one, who was talking on peace, they were I felt they are completely leaning towards Ukraine. Because their point is Ukraine is a small country and then they are less in power and less in weapons. So our view itself completely is changing. See, if we observe war, so every day we are hearing a lot of news, but continuous updates from Ukraine only. See, Ukraine is a country who is getting heavily affected from Russia, and then they are getting support from all other countries. But Ukraine is the one, even in the tough situation, president is having a time to pause a video. He's telling he's directly into the war and he's he's coming like a normal soldier. But he was able to give a good view to the camera. And then he can, it seems he was acting towards, getting the attention towards the people.
Okay, yeah. Okay. So, and also from the beginning, US and Europe or Britain, everyone, so they are starting with saying that they will impose sanctions, they will support Ukraine, and once the war started, things has been changed, and the superpowers stated that they will give only weapon-based support to Ukraine, so Ukraine has to fight on its own. Now, when the war situation is going much more intense, they have changed the words, saying that they want to contain the war in Ukraine itself. And when Ukraine president has requested that they want to declare a no-fly zone in few areas in Ukraine, so NATO or the US, and they refuse to support Ukraine. And so what is your take on it? So they are changing their plans and their views on it. So how does Ukraine has to learn from these kind of words from the superpowers?
Yeah. See, this is not on a single day point. Before the war started, what are the discussions happened, and then after the war is started, and then day one, if we observe from the Russia standpoint, Russia doesn't want Ukraine to be destroyed. They want Ukraine to utilize their continue their benefits. So that's the reason in the day one they targeted the areas, not the people, not the organizations, and then not their monuments or whatever it is. They don't want to destroy them. And in the second day, the Ukraine is getting weapons and whatever the support they are getting from the people, the other countries, NATO and the other European countries. So then they started attacking them. They started blasting, and then obviously if you hit, I'll hit it. So that's how the war is going. Every day it is, day by day it is getting more intensified, and then more damage is happening to the properties over Ukraine. So and then Russia is doing in that way, and Ukrainians are claiming that they have killed a lot of thousands of Russian soldiers, and then they have caused a lot of damage to Russia as well. So it is they are focusing on their damaging the property. So that is the reason when when it happens, and then Russia started showing its power. So when NATO is imposing the sanctions, and European countries, even Australia is imposing imposing the sanctions, and then they are they can't go back. If they go back, it seems like they are the losers. They don't want that. So that is the reason, and Russia also wants to prove that if something happens to their country, and then whatever if the people wants to cheat or wants to blame them, then they are telling no, we are very powerful, and then we don't want to take that blame, and we don't want to take all the consequences out of it. So Russia wants to prove that they are very strong and they are very powerful. So in this point, so the countries when the war is getting intensified, and yesterday 2 days back, if you see, they have attacked the nuclear plant in Ukraine. So that is it gives a huge impact on European, and then the power is getting distributed to European countries and the neighboring countries of Ukraine. See, when Russia is also taking the power from this one. So once that is happened, the country started worrying about that. If that got blasted, it's it is 10 times more effective than Chernobyl, what we had. You know how Chernobyl causes, and then we say everyone that's the biggest disaster ever happened in the history of our world. So when this happens, it is 10 times, which means European countries will get affected, even Russia will get affected. So a lot of countries will get. So when it is getting intensified, the damage, the war between Russia and Ukraine is getting more bigger. And then when it comes to collateral, the neighboring countries will get affected. Obviously, citizens are getting affected. That is one thing everyone has to accept it. But the main motto is getting bigger and bigger. So and then now all the neighboring countries are getting taking precautionary steps. They want to stop it to Ukraine. They don't want they want to show them that we are weaker, and then if Russia tries to capture, and they don't want to do that, all these things. They want to put a draw a very strong line stating that we will stop here. So Russia should stop at Ukraine itself. They don't want to make the eyes of Russia as bigger, and then they can see okay what and all they can capture. So it is not like that. They want to stop it. Even every day the war is getting intensified, then everyone in the world is seeing how Russia is moving their steps accordingly, and then we are seeing 65 kilometers of war troops are going on over Ukraine, which means Russia is more intensifying and capturing the capital city and the major cities of Ukraine. So which means they are losing a control, even though the major countries are providing weapons and everything. The neighboring countries who's having lesser in weapons and lesser in support, they are getting feared.
Okay, so taking a different position. So coming to the India's stand on this kind of situation. So India has taken a balanced position here. So India neither supported Russia nor supported Ukraine in this. We have taken a balanced and non-aligned position. We have taken it, and also India chose not to vote. Abstained vote in UN recently as well on this situation. So, what is your take on it? Does India has to take a stand at this point, or it is good that we have taken this position, or what is your view on it?
Yeah. See, in my point, India has took a good decision here. See, it is a very good strategy as well. See, it is not when people are talking about peace, the United Nations or the NATO or the European countries, whoever is talking about the peace, you need to think about balancing the parties. If you support A, which means you are indirectly opposing the B. So you should balance it. So it doesn't mean neither support nor see our Prime Minister Mr. Modi is talking to Mr. Putin, the president of Russia, and Mr. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine. So is talking to them and then trying to convince them to stop the war. And then if you see in the recent days, when Indians are getting evacuated, Mr. Putin has listened the words of Mr. Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, and then they stopped the ceasefire, they ceased the fire, and then they allowed Indians to evacuate. So that's a good sign. So in that way, we need to balance the situation. What is the benefits of when Ukraine is going to join in NATO? What is going to lose when they are not into that? So they need to balance it, and then how Russia is going to help in that way. So even if you see, Russia is helping as a neighboring country, as a there as a family earlier, like no, we all know USSR and the Soviet Union. So now they are like no, they divided into a separate countries. So now like no, even though they are separate countries, as a concern, as a relationship, Russia is supporting Ukraine, like in terms of money, in terms of lot of things, Russia is supporting. So now Russia is moving from them and joining a NATO means, which is joining into towards opponent. So that's the reason Russia is not in favor of that. So then the organization has to come that stating that what is the pros and cons of it, how this can be balanced. It doesn't mean that they are supporting one country. It is not like that. When peace means, it is not supporting one. It is balancing both.
Okay. And also, so coming to the citizens, Indian citizens staying in Ukraine, so they face a lot of hurdle. India has taken a big operation Ganga, so to evacuate all Indian citizens from Ukraine. So this operation is very intense and a lot of planes has been taken. What is your take on it? Does the Indians staying in Ukraine has stayed till the last minute to get the support from the government, or how we have to view this situation, and how the citizens has to be prepared, whoever are staying in abroad, how they have to prepare themselves for these kind of situations?
Yeah, it's a really interesting point. Everyone when we talk about citizen, every citizen should think about when we move to neighboring state itself, in India itself, we are thinking how to talk to them, how to communicate, how to learn them. So in the same way we need to learn the language, and then so it doesn't mean you need to completely excel in that. You need to at least learn to escape it, or to learn how to move from place to place. So in this case, see, the people of India, and they are talking about the war kind of situation from January. And the end of January, mid of January onwards, we are discussing, and then from Feb starting, it started more intensified, and then national media is covering and the government is alerting. But the people over there, they have more knowledge than the people over India. The reason is, if in India, the media will cover the problems of India and the problems of the world. It is one point coming to Ukraine. But when we see about Ukraine, that is the core point. So the media they might be getting news, and then it's a lot of things. So they need to talk to the embassies, and then get more information. Sometimes the embassies they might be in a busy and they might delay in a response. But see, if hundreds of people are calling to the embassy and then asking that what is happening, what is the current situation. So embassy is getting more responsible to answer the people. They need to mobilize the teams, and then how to evacuate. And then people over there has to be very, very proactive. See, it doesn't mean I was staying still till the last minute. I can I can make a decision. It is not correct actually. See, we need to be proactive. We need to consider the positive and negatives. I agree that the prices was increased and that. But if we know that earlier, why don't we make a stand over there? We can we can discuss onto the embassies, and we can make our own decisions to move out of the country or whatever it is. And then even in this Operation Ganga, and then as part it is not only the evacuation of Indian people, safeguarding the Indian people in this war situation. So Mr. Modi, the Prime Minister of India, is talking to the Mr. President Putin, and then Ukrainian President Mr. Zelensky, and then safeguarding the people of India. And then our government has made a decision not only safeguarding the Indians, we are supporting the neighboring countries Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, and Nepalians, who was there over there in the neighboring countries. Our country is supporting them. And then based on that conversation with our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Mr. Putin, the President of Russia, has a good terms and conditions has happened, and then they were in a complete safe favor towards India, and then they stopped the fire, and then they started allowing Indians to get out of that place. Their safe evacuation process is in place. And then also Russia, when in the kind of situation, what they said is, you display your country's flag. If you display your country, no Russian will attack. So in the same way with Ukraine, say that how to say, and then our government has provided guidelines like how to pronounce what are all the words they need to use, and then stating that if a soldier or someone is trying to attack, then say them that we are not against you, we are we are in Indians, and then we need to we are a common citizen, so please rescue us, provide a safe path to move out of this.
Okay, yeah, very good information. So yeah, we have to be in touch with our embassy. That's the main thing, and we have to be proactive from our end.
Yes.
Not always someone will protect us. We have to protect our
Yes.
own
Yes.
thing. Okay. And one more thing was coming to the impact to India. Though India is not participating in the war, there has been an indirect impact to India with the crude oil prices. So we have seen in the news like a price will go up for petrol by 10 rupees, which is a common man's daily usable quantity, and which has direct impact on all the household items. So on all the daily activities, petrol prices will have a huge impact. So how does India has to react, and how does India has to prepare for these kind of situations?
Yeah, it's really it is a very good question, not only to the India, and for every country in the world has to they are getting suffered with the increase of oil prices, crude oil prices. So it is it is not only the increase of oil prices, it is an indirect impact towards the economy. So which means a common man is getting more impacted in this one. See, even though they don't even know what is happening around the world, certain people, they don't even consider what is happening above and other than my area. So for them it is getting impacted indirectly as the fuel prices increases, the transport increases, and the good prices increases. It the living cost is getting increased double. If we see the if we take an example of a bus prices, even the government transport, we see if we take the the range of 10 years, it is almost doubled. The reason is on this one only. The prices, this is an inflation which is happening over the period. Over the period it is increasing, so we are also evolving in that way. But a sudden hike like this, it is unexpected. So obviously government will have emergencies fund and then all those things, and then now in this kind of situation, government has to take the responsibility, and then state government and central government has to reduce the taxes and then providing a subsidy so that a normal citizen won't get impacted in this one. So which is indirectly they are supporting hugely. So it is reducing 5 rupees in petrol per liter is giving indirect impact on all aspects of common man. So even in terms of in this kind of situation, common man try to use a public transport is a best option, but we cannot say that in all times it can be a good point. So they can use on their own transport and the public transport, which makes a bit safer.
Okay, very good. I hope we had some insightful discussion on the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Hope the peace will prevail across the world, and Russia-Ukraine tensions will settle very quickly. Hope all the citizens of Ukraine will have a normal life soon. Thank you very much for this discussion.
Yeah. See, I was hoping the same thing. Peace should prevail, and then So, here in this situation, even Ukraine and Russia both are, thinking in a perspective of, no civilian should get injured in this one. So, that's a good sign. They were focusing on the citizens on this one. So, and in the same way, the countries, they are not the big countries, the giant, the United Nations and the NATO and all other the countries, Mr. Modi is already focusing on the peace and talking with Mr. President Putin, the president of Russia. So I think this should go to a next level, and then I expecting the war should stop and then peace should prevail, and I hoping the best for the both of the countries and the rest of the world. Thank you.